It is not the intensity of love that sustains a relationship, but the intensity of the need for power. There's a kind of silence that doesn't calm you. It disturbs you. It's the silence in a room where someone close to you smiles, but something about their eyes tells a different story. You can't explain it, but you feel it. That offhand compliment, that slightly delayed clap when you win, that laugh that sounds a little too forced when you speak about your new success. This video is about the kind of jealousy Nietzsche warned us about, not the obvious kind, the kind that screams in envy, but the kind that festers quietly in the heart of a friend, a partner, a sibling, the kind of jealousy that is ashamed of itself so it hides beneath politeness, encouragement, and even affection. Nietzsche called this ressentiment, a dark alchemy of suppressed envy, repressed desire, and moral self-deception. It is the sickness of the soul that cannot accept another's rise, and so it seeks to bring them down, not with knives, but with smiles. And the worst part? The person who envies you the most might be the one closest to you, and they might not even know it themselves. Let's break through the illusion. Let's dive into the philosophy, the psychology, and the unsettling signs that Nietzsche and other brilliant minds warned us about, because knowing these signs might just save your peace of mind, or your future. The first sign: they subtly downplay your success. There's a peculiar kind of friend who never claps too loudly, who always smiles when you win, but somehow makes you feel like your victory is small, obvious, or not really a big deal. Nietzsche would say this is not just social behavior, it's the ressentiment of the mediocre. When someone is too weak to surpass you, they don't try to beat you. They try to reduce the meaning of your success. They strip it of its emotional power. They turn your mountain into a molehill because that's the only way they can sleep at night. You'll hear things like, "Well, you were lucky. Anyone could have done that. You always get what you want. Must be nice." Or worse, they say nothing at all. Just a tight-lipped smile and a quick subject change. Carl Jung believed that the shadow, the unconscious part of ourselves we try to repress, often reveals itself in subtle ways. Envy is one of the most suppressed emotions in modern relationships. So, it leaks out sideways, as sarcasm, as minimization, as faint praise. And when it comes from someone close to you, it cuts twice as deep, because deep down, you want their celebration. Not just for your ego, but because you want to believe they're genuinely happy for you. But someone who secretly envies you doesn't want you to shine too brightly. Not because they hate you, sometimes they truly love you, but your light reminds them of their own dimness, and that's unbearable. The second sign: they imitate you, then resent you for it. There's a strange moment of realization when you see someone close to you, becoming you. They start adopting your style, using your phrases, picking up your routines, your music, your mannerisms. At first, it feels flattering, almost intimate. You think, they admire me. But over time, it shifts. The admiration turns cold. The conversations become passive-aggressive. The compliments stop. The closeness sours. What happened? Nietzsche might say they weren't trying to become more like you. They were trying to replace you. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche warns us about the spiritual burden of being the higher man. When someone shines with uniqueness, it does two things to others. It inspires them, and it threatens them. They want to steal the fire without being burned, and when they can't bear the heat, they'll try to extinguish it instead. They imitate your light, hoping it'll grant them the same power. But when that doesn't work, when their mimicry still leaves them empty, they blame you. Resentment builds. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you were real, and they were pretending. Robert Anton Wilson touched on this psychological twist when he said, "You are precisely as big as what you love, and precisely as small as what you allow to annoy you." The secretly jealous person loves your presence at first, but that love is based on illusion. When the illusion fails, when they realize they can't become what you are just by copying, they shrink, and the annoyance begins. This is where resentment festers. Imitation wasn't enough. They thought wearing your skin would give them your soul. But it doesn't work that way. So now, every time they look at you, they're reminded of the self they failed to become. And instead of gratitude, you get distance, coldness, or subtle hostility. This is not about vanity. This is about spiritual boundaries, because not everyone who admires your light wants to stand beside it. Some want to steal it, and when they can't, they curse the flame. The third sign. They seem overly supportive, but something feels off. There's a kind of support that feels heavy. You tell them about your new promotion, your new idea, your new dream, and they smile. They cheer. They say all the right things. But when you walk away, something inside you doesn't feel celebrated. It feels managed. Nietzsche warned us about the subtle masks people wear, not out of malice, but out of unconscious fear. He wrote, "Distrust all in whom the impulse to punish is powerful." The secretly jealous don't often attack with words. They attack with emotional ambiguity. They become overly supportive to the point where it starts to feel performative, almost staged. You can sense it in their tone, in the way their compliments land flat, in the way they praise you with such forced enthusiasm that it borders on sarcasm. It's as if they're trying to convince themselves that they're happy for you, but failing. Carl Jung might call this a split in the psyche, a battle between the mask, the persona they wear, and the shadow, the true feeling they suppress. They want to appear generous, kind, unbothered, but deep down, there's a part of them that's irritated by your growth, a part that sees your success as a mirror of their stagnation. Even Machiavelli, the master of political psychology, wrote about this tactic, the use of over-flattery as a strategic deflection. Sometimes praise is not praise, it's containment. It's a way to disarm you emotionally, to keep you from noticing the inner tension they carry. By exaggerating their approval, they conceal their envy, and even convince themselves they're not envious. But you can always feel the truth in your body. The heart picks up what the mind tries to ignore. It's not about paranoia, it's about presence. Real support feels clean, calm, solid. Fake support feels like walking on thin ice, fragile, slippery, and cold underneath. So when someone cheers too loudly, ask yourself, are they celebrating me, or silencing the voice inside them that hates my joy? The fourth sign. They celebrate your failures, even if they don't say it. You stumble, you falter. Something doesn't go your way, and suddenly their energy shifts. They're right there, smiling softly, saying, "I'm so sorry to hear that." But beneath the surface, there's a flicker of something else. Relief. Friedrich Nietzsche had a name for this hidden phenomenon, Schadenfreude, the secret joy in the misfortune of others. And when it comes from a stranger, it's disturbing. But when it comes from someone close to you, it's soul-wounding. You'll feel it in their timing. When you're at your lowest, they suddenly become available, eager to help, full of unsolicited advice. It's not the help that's the problem. It's the undertone. As if they're finally breathing again. As if your fall rebalanced the scale they've been mentally measuring for years. Carl Jung would say this is the shadow's revenge. The part of a person that envies, represses, and smiles through clenched teeth is also the part that secretly rejoices when the source of their pain, your success, stumbles. Your failure becomes their emotional payday. They may never admit it. They may not even fully realize it, but their behavior will betray them. They linger on your bad news. They bring it up again, long after it's past. They laugh too hard at your self-deprecating jokes. They post subtly dismissive comments online. And somehow, when you rise again, they become strangely quiet. Robert Greene, in the 48 Laws of Power, warned, never outshine the master. And what happens when you do, even unintentionally, is that those who cannot compete with your light will wait patiently in the shadows for you to fall. And when you do, their comfort isn't rooted in compassion, it's rooted in vindication. This isn't about being suspicious of every person in your circle. It's about becoming wise to the signs your soul already recognizes. Because when someone is more at ease with your pain than with your power, you're not in the presence of love, you're in the presence of quiet war. The fifth sign, they compete with you in things you never made a competition. There's no scoreboard, no race, no trophy, and yet, they're always trying to one-up you. You tell a story about your weekend, they tell a better one. You mention something you're learning, they suddenly have already done it. You're not trying to compete, but somehow, they always are. Nietzsche would say this is the inevitable cost of greatness in proximity. He once wrote, Whoever despises himself still respects himself as one who despises. In other words, people who feel inferior don't always shrink away. Sometimes they double down, trying to overtake you in arenas you never signed up for. This is the quiet war of envy, and what makes it dangerous is how subtle it can be. The competition isn't announced, it's implied. You didn't enter a contest, you were just living. But to them, your life is a threat. Your growth becomes a challenge, and the closer they are to you, the more personal it feels. Carl Jung explored this through the lens of projection. When someone harbors insecurity, they often project it outward by trying to dominate the very people they admire. They may even believe they're helping you, pushing you, but what they're really doing is trying to protect their ego from the pain of your quiet rise. Machiavelli understood this too. In The Prince, he noted that people will often support those who pose no threat, but once your presence begins to exceed their comfort level, they either seek to control you or subtly sabotage you, not with cruelty, with competition. They want to remind you, I can do that too, and better. But true friendship isn't a tug-of-war, it's a sanctuary. If someone is keeping score, it means they're not at peace. You'll know this is happening when you start to feel exhausted after sharing your joys, when even good news becomes something you have to manage or downplay just to avoid triggering another ego. And in that moment, Nietzsche's warning becomes real. Be careful when you cast out your demons. You may cast out the best part of yourself. Because if your light invites others to compete, it means you've awakened something they've been trying to suppress. The sixth sign. They talk about you behind your back, but call it concern. You hear it through someone else. She said she's just worried about how fast you're changing. He told me he's concerned you might be overdoing it. Concern. Always concern. But concern that never reaches you. Only others. Nietzsche would see this as a form of masked power. When someone envies you but refuses to admit it, to themselves or others, they disguise their judgment as care. They lower their voice, wear a pained expression, and speak about you in ways that sound virtuous, but feel vaguely condemning. It's the "I'm just worried" narrative, a moral disguise for inner jealousy. Machiavelli warned that manipulation often wears the face of virtue, and in modern relationships, that manipulation isn't overt, it's psychological. Talking behind your back while pretending to be helpful is the perfect passive-aggressive weapon. It allows someone to discredit your growth while maintaining the image of loyalty. Carl Jung might say this is a projection of the shadow moralist, a person who doesn't confront their own envy, so they elevate themselves by painting you as reckless, arrogant, or unstable. They invent a story. Not that you are rising, but that you are spiraling. Not that you're succeeding, but that you're changing too fast for your own good. And of course, they'd never say it to your face, because that would risk conflict. That would expose the real root of the emotion. Instead, they whisper. They plant seeds. They gather subtle consensus. And you start feeling the shift. People treat you differently. Not because of what you've done, but because of what someone else said, in the tone of worry. This is one of the most damaging signs, because it isolates you from the very people who might have supported your growth. It creates suspicion in the minds of others. It fractures trust, all while making the envious party appear noble. True concern speaks directly. It protects and uplifts. False concern speaks in whispers and always leaves you diminished in the telling. So ask yourself, if they're truly concerned, why haven't they said it to you? The seventh sign. They distance themselves without explanation. Suddenly, they go quiet. The calls slow down. The messages stop. The energy fades. You haven't argued. You haven't changed. At least not in any way that seems obvious. But something has shifted, and they won't tell you why. Nietzsche would recognize this as the emotional withdrawal of the silently envious. When someone can no longer stand to be around what reminds them of their own perceived inadequacy, they create distance, not to protect you, but to protect their own identity from fragmentation. He wrote, "Invisible threads are the strongest ties, but jealousy slowly unties them, quietly, without fanfare, not with a bang but a fade. And the worst part? They often don't even know why they're pulling away. Their ego tells them, you're just growing apart. But the truth buried under layers of unspoken pain, is that your presence has become unbearable, not because you harmed them, but because your evolution makes them feel left behind. Carl Jung would describe this as a disintegration of emotional resonance. In every deep connection, there's an invisible harmony, a rhythm of mutual understanding. But when one person grows and the other doesn't, the frequencies start to clash. Instead of facing that discomfort, the jealous mind pulls away. It blames you. You're different. You've changed. You're not who you used to be. And they're right. You have changed. You've grown. You've evolved. But instead of being inspired, they feel abandoned. And instead of admitting their insecurity, they create distance as a defense. The tragedy is that they don't leave with honesty. They don't say what they feel. They just fade, leaving you confused, guilty, and questioning yourself. But don't chase them. Don't shrink. Nietzsche reminds us, "He who climbs upon the highest mountains laughs at all tragedies, real or imaginary." This isn't your tragedy. It's theirs. And sometimes distance isn't rejection. It's a sign of their internal collapse. The eighth sign, they want you to stay the same. They never say it outright, but every time you grow, every time you expand your thinking, change your habits, pursue something bold, they flinch. They make jokes about how you've changed. They romanticize the old you. They say they miss how things used to be. But what they really miss is your smallness. Nietzsche spoke often of becoming, the constant state of transformation required for any truly free individual. He wrote, "The snake which cannot shed its skin must perish." And yet, the secretly jealous want you to keep your old skin, because your transformation forces them to face their stagnation. This is the ultimate form of envy, not just disliking your success or your personality, but rejecting your evolution, wanting you to stay in a box they can understand, manage, or feel superior to. Because once you outgrow that version of yourself, the power dynamic changes, and they feel lost. Carl Jung would call this the fear of individuation. As you become more whole, more authentic, more spiritually attuned, it threatens those who have not done their inner work. They need you to stay predictable, because your unpredictability makes them confront their own limitations. Even Robert Anton Wilson warned of this. Every perception is a gamble. And when someone you love begins to perceive the world through a higher lens, it threatens the old agreements. Suddenly your conversations feel strained, your silence becomes suspicious, your peace becomes offensive. They may guilt you, say you're acting better than everyone. They may mock your new ideas, laugh at your new disciplines, or even weaponize your past against you, reminding you of who you used to be as a way of recaging you. This is not love. This is fear wearing the mask of memory. The truly dangerous, jealous person isn't the one who openly envies your rise. It's the one who romanticizes your roots to keep you from growing wings, who smiles at your transformation while quietly sabotaging it with nostalgia. But you owe no one your stillness. Nietzsche believed that those who fear your evolution are simply confessing their refusal to evolve. And in that sense, your very growth becomes a kind of mirror, one they cannot stand to look into. So keep changing, keep climbing. Let the ones who cannot handle your becoming fall away, because no one who truly loves you wants you to stay the same. Final reflection. So now you've seen it. The smiles that don't reach the eyes, the praise that feels like poison, the quiet competitions, the soft betrayals, the fading presence. Jealousy isn't always loud. In fact, it rarely is. Friedrich Nietzsche taught that most people do not know they are envious because admitting envy requires humility, and the ego despises humility. So instead, envy wears masks. It becomes concern. It becomes loyalty. It becomes silence. But it's still envy, and when it festers inside someone close to you, it becomes a force of spiritual erosion, one that doesn't just harm you, it makes you question your joy, your growth, even your identity. But here's the deeper truth. Their jealousy is not really about you. It's about what you represent. You are living proof that change is possible, that growth is real, that mediocrity isn't destiny. And for someone unwilling to face their own fears or embrace their own path, that truth is intolerable. Carl Jung reminded us, what you resist persists. And what many people resist most is their own potential. So when you embody yours, they don't feel inspired. They feel judged, even if you've done nothing but grow quietly. So how do you protect yourself? With awareness, with boundaries, with calm detachment. Don't shrink to make others comfortable. Don't dim your light for people who wear sunglasses around your fire. And don't waste your time proving your purity to those who have already decided to envy you. As Robert Anton Wilson once said, you should view the world as a conspiracy run by a very closely knit group of nearly omnipotent people, and you should think of yourself as one of them. Be one of the rare few who dares to evolve, openly, fearlessly, unapologetically. And when envy comes, as it will, recognize it for what it is, a signpost, not a stopping point. Because in the end, Nietzsche believed that the price of greatness is isolation, but he also believed that the reward is freedom. So walk your path, rise in silence, and let them whisper. You have mountains to climb.